On the bridge of escort carrier USS Bogue, Captain Aurelius B. Vosseller's eyes narrow as he carefully studies his charts. It's June 1944, and he knows these Atlantic waters are crawling with German U-boats. Yet, Vosseller guides Bogue and her 5 destroyer escorts toward a different target. It's a rare opportunity that's simply too good to pass up. The I-52, an enormous 3,600-ton Japanese submarine. It's certainly unusual to find one so far from home, but what really caught Vosseller's attention is what's rumored to be inside. 146 gold ingots weighing 2.2 tons. Whatever the Axis powers are up to, one thing's for sure. He can't let that gold reach Europe. Just before midnight, Vosseller's ears prick up as Bogue's radio suddenly crackles to life with an exciting message. One of the carrier's Grumman TBF Avenger torpedo bombers has picked up a surface contact. The captain's lips curl into a dry smile. At last, the fabled Golden Submarine is firmly in his sights. Laid down in Tacoma, Washington on October 1, 1941, the ship that would later become USS Bogue was originally intended as a civilian C-3 type cargo vessel called Steel Advocate. However, with the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor just over 2 months later thrusting the United States into World War II, she was transferred to the U.S. Navy in May 1942 and quickly transformed into an escort carrier, becoming the lead ship of the new Bogue class, made up of other converted C-3s. Compared to contemporary fleet carriers such as the Essex class, USS Bogue and her classmates were significantly smaller, with a length of 495 feet and a displacement of approximately 15,400 tons when fully loaded, allowing them to maneuver in smaller ports. While previous escort carriers, such as the Long Island and Charger classes, had been powered by diesel engines, the Bogue class was propelled by an Allis-Chalmers steam turbine engine. This allowed them to reach a higher top speed of 18 knots, still slower than fleet carriers, but more than enough for them to be able to keep up with the merchant ships they were principally designed to protect. As with all carriers, their main weapons were the aircraft they housed. The Bogue class's 440-foot-long flight deck could hold an air group of up to 28, though they rarely carried more than 24. Depending on the mission, this would usually consist of a mixture of fighters, typically Grumman F-4F Wildcats, and anti-submarine aircraft, usually Grumman TBF Avengers. This meant Bogue could not only protect convoys from enemy threats, but was also capable of performing offensive roles, a key advantage the U.S. Navy would fully exploit. For additional defense, USS Bogue was originally equipped with a somewhat limited armament of 2 5-inch 51 caliber guns and 10 20mm Ehrlichen anti-aircraft cannons. However, before Bogue set sail on her first mission, these would be upgraded to 5-inch 38 caliber guns and 40mm Beaufort cannons respectively, offering a more robust protection against enemy threats. USS Bogue was manned by a crew of 400, including sailors who had served aboard USS Lexington and USS Yorktown, both recently sunk by the Japanese. Commissioned at Puget Sound Navy Yard under the command of Captain Giles Short on September 26, 1942, she joined the Atlantic Fleet the following February. The Atlantic had been a hotly contested marine battlefield since the early days of the war. German U-boats prowled these waters like packs of wolves, wreaking havoc on vulnerable Allied merchant ships and sending millions of tons of vital supplies to the ocean floor. As an escort carrier, Bogue's initial role was that of a shepherd, accompanying convoys across the treacherous Atlantic with a handful of destroyers in tow for extra protection. Her first missions in March and April 1943 proved largely uneventful, with only 2 unsuccessful engagements against U-boats. Her fourth Atlantic crossing, which began on May 15th, would prove more dramatic. On May 21st, while escorting convoy ON-184 westbound from Iceland, one of Bogue's Avengers spotted the German submarine U-231 and swooped in to attack. With practiced precision, the American aircrew released their lethal payload. A sea erupted as depth charges exploded around the diving U-boat. When the spray settled, U-231 was still afloat, but badly damaged. A depth charge had ruptured its hull, causing a chlorine gas leak that disabled both of the submarine's vital radio transmitters. Unable to call for help, and too damaged to continue its mission, U-231 had no choice but to limp back to occupied France for repairs. While the submarine did not sink, it would mark Bogue's first successful encounter. However, the next day, Bogue and her aircraft would get another chance to prove what they were made of, when they encountered U-569 just 20 miles away from the escort carrier. One of her Avengers launched an attack, forcing the U-boat to surface, only to fall victim to a bomb from another of Bogue's Avengers. The submarine nosedived, plummeting to a depth of 350 feet before the crew could regain control. Realizing the seriousness of the damage, the commander gave the order to blow the tanks, pushing her back to the surface. As the second Avenger began strafing the stricken submarine's deck, the Germans scuttled the submarine before jumping overboard, where they were later picked up by the Canadian destroyer HMCS Saint Laurent. It was Bogue's first victory, but it wouldn't be her last. For Bogue's 5th Atlantic Patrol, beginning on May 30th, she was given different orders that would drastically change the way she operated. Allied commanders, frustrated by mounting losses, were devising a bold new strategy. No longer would they simply react to U-boat attacks. Instead, they would take the fight to the enemy. Bogue now found herself at the forefront of this tactical revolution, becoming the centerpiece of one of the first anti-submarine hunter-killer groups created to actively seek out and destroy U-boats before they could strike Allied shipping. With this new aggressive operational style, on June 5th, Bogue's aircraft soon tracked down a potential target. This time, it was a different type of enemy submarine. U-217 was one of 6 Type 7D mine-laying U-boats, charged with leaving their lethal ordnance at carefully selected points to lie in wait for unwary Allied vessels. Working together with one of Bogue's Wildcats, an Avenger positioned itself directly over U-217, and with a perfectly timed depth charge, condemned its prey to the bottom of the ocean, along with her entire crew, dealing a blow to German mine-laying operations in the Atlantic. Throughout the summer of 1943, Bogue and her aircraft continued to rack up victories. U-118, a large Type 10B supply submarine, fell victim to a coordinated assault from 7 of Bogue's aircraft on June 12th. July 23rd saw the sinking of U-527, guided to the target by intelligence derived from intercepted German communications. These successes highlighted the effectiveness of the Allies' hunter-killer tactics. Admiral Karl Dönitz, commander of the U-boat fleet, found his submarines increasingly on the defensive. The once feared wolf packs were now the hunted, forced to spend more time evading Allied aircraft than attacking convoys. As 1943 drew to a close, Bogue's reputation as a submarine hunter was growing rapidly. On December 13th, her aircraft played a crucial role in a marathon 27-hour engagement that resulted in the sinking of U-172. Just a week later, on December 20th, Bogue's pilots used a combination of depth charges and the new Mark 24 Fido acoustic homing torpedo to send U-850 to the bottom. After spending Christmas 1943 in Bermuda, USS Bogue took a well-earned rest from her operations to take on a new responsibility that would demonstrate her versatility, ferrying U.S. Army aircraft across the Atlantic to the European theater. However, by March 1944, she was back to doing what she did best, seeking out and eliminating enemy submarines. By now, the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic had shifted dramatically. The German U-boat fleet, once a dire threat to Allied shipping, was now on the defensive. USS Bogue and her sister ships played a crucial role in this reversal, their tactics proving devastatingly effective. Desperate to regain the upper hand, German engineers developed the snorkel, a device allowing U-boats to run diesel engines while submerged at periscope depth. This innovation meant submarines could remain underwater for extended periods, making them harder targets for Bogue's aircraft. However, the Allies quickly countered. New radar systems were deployed to detect snorkel masts, while sonar operators learned to identify the unique sound of snorkeling U-boats. Bogue's pilots began flying at lower altitudes, increasing their chances of spotting telltale wakes. At the same time, Allied codebreakers continued to decipher German naval communications, providing vital intelligence. This information allowed Bogue and other hunter groups to position themselves more effectively, maintaining their edge in the constantly evolving conflict. After working together with British and Canadian forces to sink U-575 on March 13th, in May, Bogue fell under the command of Captain Aurelius Vosseller. Vosseller had already made a name for himself at the helm of the Anti-Submarine Development Detachment, earning the Legion of Merit for his work crafting tactics and techniques to make Navy aircraft more effective against German U-boats. With USS Bogue, he would have a chance to put his ideas into practice in real combat situations. However, German U-boats were no longer the only targets in the Atlantic. With the Axis powers now on the back foot, they began sharing more and more resources and technology with one another in an effort to give themselves a better chance of victory against the Allies. As part of this exchange, Germany gave several U-boats to Japan. Among them was U-1224, now recommissioned into the Imperial Japanese Navy as RO-501. Yet, on May 13th, as the newly transferred submarine made the long journey from Germany to Japan, she ran into an unexpected adversary, USS Bogue's group. USS Francis M. Robinson, one of the group's destroyers, blasted the enemy vessel with a full salvo from her Hedgehog mount before pounding her with 5 depth charges. RO-501 never made it to Japan. It wouldn't be Bogue's last run-in with the Japanese. As summer approached, Captain Vosseller received urgent orders from Allied command. This was no ordinary mission. She was to intercept and destroy a Japanese submarine making an audacious voyage from Japan to Europe. The submarine in question, I-52, was one of the largest of its time, an underwater behemoth displacing over 3,600 tons when submerged. Yet what made I-52 most interesting was neither her size nor the length of her journey. It was what was on board. I-52 carried a precious cargo of 146 gold bars, a total of 2.2 tons, payment for German technology and raw materials critical to Japan's war effort. This earned her the nickname of the Golden Submarine. What's more, she was also transporting over 200 tons of raw rubber, tin, and quinine, along with opium and other valuable commodities. Perhaps most intriguing were the 14 Japanese technicians aboard. Tasked with studying German technology in anti-aircraft guns and naval engines. Were she to reach her destination of occupied France, she would provide the Axis powers with a vital exchange of goods and information, which could prove crucial to reversing their fortunes against the Allies. Vosseller led Bogue and her 5-destroyer task force from Casablanca, as Allied intelligence kept them updated on I-52's movements. On the night of June 22nd, I-52 rendezvoused with German submarine U-530 west of the Cape Verde Islands. The Japanese submarine took on fuel, an Enigma machine, a radar detector, and even 2 German radar operators to assist in the perilous journey through the Bay of Biscay to occupied France. Guided by the latest intelligence, Bogue and her escorts closed in on their prey. Finally, just before midnight on June 23rd, success. One of Bogue's Avengers made radar contact with I-52. The aircraft swooped in, dropping flares to illuminate the ocean's surface. The submarine, caught by surprise, quickly submerged. Determined not to let its target escape, the Avenger dropped sonobuoys, underwater microphones that could detect the sounds of the submarine's engines. Listening intently for any clue as to I-52's location. Suddenly, the Avenger's crew heard the unmistakable sound of submarine propellers crackling through their headphones. Without hesitation, they dropped a Fido, its sensitive acoustic sensors homing in on the sounds of I-52's engines as it plunged into the ocean. Tense moments passed as the crew waited, their eyes fixed on the rolling sea below. Then, through their sonobuoys, they heard it. A thunderous explosion, followed by the horrifying sounds of twisting metal, a hull breaking up under immense pressure. As dawn broke over the Atlantic, the full extent of Bogue's victory became clear. USS Janssen, reaching the site, found the grim evidence floating on the surface, pieces of raw rubber and silk, accompanied by human remains. The Golden Submarine now lay broken at the bottom of the Atlantic. The sinking of I-52 marked a significant victory for Bogue and the Allies. Not only had they prevented valuable cargo from reaching Germany, but they had also dealt a major blow to Axis cooperation and technology exchange. However, Bogue refused to rest on her laurels. In August, her aircraft thwarted a covert German operation when they detected and relentlessly assaulted U-1229 off the coast of Newfoundland. The submarine, tasked with inserting an Abwehr spy into America, succumbed to the attack after a prolonged engagement. Forced to surface due to toxic fumes from damaged batteries, the U-boat endured further strafing, resulting in significant casualties before its crew abandoned ship, with survivors later rescued by an American destroyer. After another brief stint performing Army aircraft transportation duties in February 1945, Bogue formed part of Operation Teardrop, an Allied anti-submarine mission to prevent a group of German U-boats believed to be on their way to attack the United States mainland with V-1 flying bombs. During this intense hunt, Bogue's escort, USS Frederick C. Davis, was sunk by U-546, but the rest of her destroyers quickly took revenge, striking the German submarine on April 24th. As the war in Europe drew to a close, Bogue's role shifted once again. She was transferred to the Pacific Theater, where she continued to serve until the end of hostilities. By war's end, Bogue and her aircraft had sunk 11 enemy submarines, making her one of the most successful anti-submarine carriers of the conflict. After the war, Bogue was decommissioned and placed in reserve. She was eventually sold for scrap in 1960, but her legacy lived on. The tactics and strategies developed by USS Bogue and her sister ships had played an important role in winning the Battle of the Atlantic and would influence naval doctrine for years to come.